let's get started. We may have some more people rolling in because I don't know everyone, but I know some of you. My name is Michael Goldberg, and I don't think you've seen me, Ollie, in my new role. I'm the new
Congratulations.
executive director of the Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship at Case, and also I'm a professor at Weatherhead, and it's awesome to have Ollie join our new Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship alumni speaker series. It's funny, we have some non-alums, we have some alums, so when it's alum, I insert that we're part of the alumni speaker series, and actually the Alumni Association of the university has been a great partner, so this is also sort of being shared on Facebook Live with a number of different chapters, and I want to welcome those of you who are watching on Facebook Live. Because we have kind of a manageable group, I know it's growing, maybe I'll just sort of go down the participant list and ask folks to introduce yourselves so that Ollie has a sense who you are, and then I'll turn it over to Rohan, who's going to moderate today. So Mark Haberbush, why don't you go first?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Mark Haberbush, Great Lakes Energy Institute, Director of Programs. Hi, Ollie.
Hey, Mark.
I've got some. Okay, we'll go Aparna Paul. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Aparna. I'm a current Think Energy Fellow with the Great Lakes Energy Institute, and I'm a chemical engineering English major.
And tell me where you guys are sitting now that everybody's scattered throughout the country and world. Where are you now?
I'm from central Pennsylvania.
Okay, you're at home. Okay,
yep. Great.
Nice to meet you, Aparna. Let's go Catherine Smith. If you can hear.
Hi, I'm Catherine Smith. I'm here in Cleveland. I actually work in the K-12 space of entrepreneurship, and I have an opportunity right now with work from home to jump in on this community-wide class offering.
Awesome. And where are you working?
I'm actually in between right now with this restructuring of everything, but I've worked in the after-school space and the school district in Cleveland.
Awesome, Catherine. Nice to connect. Awesome. Igor, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, Michael. My name is Igor Tudelman. I'm a master's student at Case, working on my master's in accounting and data analytics, and I also have a little startup called Pastry Now on campus.
Paused, another victim of the crisis, eh? You guys aren't making your pastries now, right?
We are not. Yeah, we shut down indefinitely, doing a re-strategizing meeting later this week.
Okay, good to connect, Igor. All right, Jacob Berg.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Jacob Berg. I am a junior accounting major at Case. Right now, I'm currently home at New Jersey. And I joined this call just because it's a topic I'm interested in and want to learn more about.
Awesome, great, awesome to meet you. Okay, Cynthia Garza, I know we talked briefly before, but if you can reintroduce yourself.
Hi, yes, Cynthia Garza. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I am a recruiter, so I recruit software engineers internally for Indeed. And actually, the reason why I want to jump on this call is mainly because of my husband. He's in the energy space, in energy management for Austin Energy. So I'm always intrigued when I can follow along on a conversation that I have with him. So again, with this sort of pause that we're going through at work, this was a great opportunity for me to hop on and educate myself as well.
Great to have you. Kareem?
Hey, yeah, I'm Kareem. I'm a senior, soon to be graduating economics and environmental studies major, former Great Lakes Energy Institute alum also, but currently in Erie, Pennsylvania. Where's home?
Thanks, Kareem. Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a current Think Energy Fellow as well. I'm a senior in economics and international studies, and I'm out in Wisconsin right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Julia. Catherine Starr.
Oh, hi. I actually work with the cybersecurity division here at Case. I just jumped on this call because I thought it was pretty cool. I like energy. I studied at Case. I wanted to get into the GLE institute, but I just didn't have the time. So I thought sustainability conference would be kind of cool to see what's up.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. Great. Ayat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. I am a new resident to Cleveland. I'm not affiliated with the university or the entrepreneurship program at Case Western, but I studied physics and work at an economic development startup here in Cleveland, and am very interested in starting my own, very active in the environmental activism space in Cleveland, which is why this was recommended to me.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Cleveland, and thanks for joining the call. Monique.
Sorry, hi, I have a lot of people here, so I had to mute it.
Okay. Great. Introduce yourself, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Oh, okay, so my name is Monique Chavers. I'm actually an Upper Bound Coordinator with Warrensville Heights. I was coming in on behalf of my students because I know some of them don't have internet access. So I have a few students who are in that field or want to go into the field of business and entrepreneurship. And I thought I'll just come in and give them some insight about it when we're done.
Awesome, Monique. Welcome. Thanks for joining. All right, I've got my friend Bernard Veale. Bernard Veale on. Bernard, you want to say hi?
Hi, great to be here. Good to see you again, Michael.
Hey,
I am an adjunct professor here at Case Western and sit on the boards of several companies, including one energy company. And I just think this is a great opportunity to learn something. So thank you for inviting us, Michael.
Thanks, Bernard. Great to see you. Aaron.
Hey guys, I graduated last May, got a degree in civil engineering. I'm currently still in Cleveland, and I work full-time at the same startup as eGard does, Pastry Now.
Awesome. Nice to see you, Aaron. And last but not least, my friend Bob Sopko.
Hey, so I'm a few minutes late. Just got off another Zoom call. Bob Sopko, I'm Director of LaunchNet here at Case, helping students, alumni with their business ideas. Well, looking forward to another great session.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, that was good. Well, thanks. It's awesome to have you all on, particularly during this time. And I will throw it over to Rohan. I would encourage you, we have, for those that are sort of new to Zoom, I know a number of the Case students are not, use the chat group to pose questions along the way. Rohan's going to sort of be running the show, checking the chat for questions. You can raise your hand, ask a question. There's a whole number of ways to do it, but I will turn it over to Rohan.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Rohan Sinha. I'm a third-year electrical engineering and economics student here at Case. My connection to the Great Lakes Energy Institute is actually I'm one of the current Think Energy Fellows. So, thank you to Michael, thank you to Ali for your support. Shout out to Mark, who's our director. So this is a part of the Veale Institute Alumni Speaker Series. It's a really, really cool opportunity that Michael's gotten going for Case, where we get to talk to people who were previously affiliated with the university, learn a little bit more about their journey from Case to where they are now, and have them speak a little bit more along the veins of leadership and how they made the decisions they made to actually get to where they are. So without further ado, I'll introduce Ali Ahmed and let him actually speak more on who he is, what he does, and then let's get into this discussion.
Thank you. Nice to see a lot of you guys again, because I see some former students, a lot of the Think Energy Fellows who I know from my experience serving on the board of the Great Lakes Energy Institute, and some of the other folks from the Case family that I've been affiliated with in the past. So again, my name is Ali Ahmed. I am a energy and sustainability consultant. I run my own consultancy. Until recently based in Cleveland, Ohio, now based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where my wife and I moved about 18 months ago. My background, although I have a very good baby face, is in excess of 25 years of experience doing energy management and sustainability work for primarily Fortune 500s, but across all industries. So if you name it, I've probably seen it being made. And that's one of the really interesting parts about being in the energy industry, is that everything uses energy. So you kind of have a visibility into lots of different industries and lots of different opportunities. My business is called Green Strategies Llc. It's now 4 years old. Never thought I'd go this far, but it's been good so far. And I'm a sole person consultancy, but I also bring in a lot of students and other people to work with and partner up with to do larger projects. So looking forward to kind of talking today about both my last 4 years as entrepreneur, at least the sole proprietor, but also some things around entrepreneurship, because a lot of what I've done in big companies is really kind of create small teams that are out there innovating within larger frameworks. So happy to speak on both those topics, and looking forward to having some fun this afternoon.
All right, sweet. And like Michael said, everyone, please do fill up the chat boxes or raise your hand or do something to let us know if you have a question. It'll be a much better discussion, I think, if we can integrate a lot of different viewpoints into this. So without further ado, let's actually begin the discussion here. So Ali, like you said, you've done a lot in terms of being an entrepreneur, but then also working within larger corporations. And the one common thread here is you've always had some role, even when you were an engineer, in power systems or energy management or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But can you talk a little bit about how from, being an undergrad at Case in physics, kind of moving to where you are, keeping energy as that common thread? How did that come to be, and how has that kind of guided you through your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things when you start out and you're in your early 20s and you're starting a career, some of it's, things that you're drawn to and then a little bit of luck, right? And so I was really drawn to a lot of work in optimization, and I was working with the systems and control department on some optimization. I had always kind of bumped into a number of different energy projects, both as an undergraduate and then as a graduate student. And so I had the opportunity to kind of really start my career doing systems design of energy systems, and more from a controls standpoint. So it was very technical, and it's interesting because now when I talk to my peers that have kind of come into the sustainability world in particular, most of them don't have a technical background. They come from marketing, or they come from more the business side. And so it's interesting because I can actually talk to them about how the electrons actually move and how solar power actually gets generated, and why these things are different. So that was really kind of the inception that kind of took some experiences that I had, as an undergrad and as a graduate student, and kind of gelled them into me starting a career in energy management at the time with Rockwell Automation. And I just kept doubling down on that experience because I enjoyed doing that kind of work. And so when the opportunities came to do more projects in that space, or to get more training, or to get a certification, I just kind of kept adding to my resume in that field. And that's how you build expertise over the course of a number of decades in your career.
Yeah, that's actually one of the really cool things that I encountered as being a Think Energy fellow. Is energy is really a very complicated industry because it's an intersection of the science, it's an intersection of policy, and also the business side. And all three of those have to work together to kind of make this, happen. And so you, by training, were more along the technical side, but have since moved on more into the marketing and then eventually the overall business strategy. So can you talk a little bit about that transition and how that's kind of, influenced your opinion of the energy industry and just your experience overall?
Yeah, I mean, I always look at things that I call moments of opportunity, right? Where certain things happen at that moment, you have to make a decision. And I usually use that with businesses when we talk about improving energy efficiency or improving sustainability, because those moments are things like, we're going to go build a new headquarters, or we're going to design a new product. And those are really great opportunities to make things more efficient. For my career, the transition occurred when we reorganized the group, and I was in engineering and project management, and there was going to be an opening in marketing. And I knew there was two of us, and I knew the other guy didn't want it. So, you never want to be told to do a job. You'd rather volunteer. So I volunteered before I was told to do it. And that was a very interesting transition, right? So, it really gave me a lot more insights into the other two sides that you mentioned, kind of the business side of it, and the political and the geopolitical side of energy and sustainability. And this was still really before, we talked about it in the language that we talk about it today. I mean, this was still really about helping companies save money. It really wasn't about, looking at global climate change or all these other things. I mean, it was still early days of Kyoto and kind of the big policy. But it also made me realize that you can have the right answer, and if you can't sell that answer, it doesn't do you any good. And so that was the kind of a big realization. I kind of really dove into the idea of selling and consultative selling. So it wasn't just good enough to be smart. You had to be smart and know how to sell your ideas to people.
So has that kind of led you in any way to decide to kind of start your own shop? I mean, can you talk about the fact that you were a member of several, huge companies and did a lot of great work with them for several years, and then you're deciding, okay, instead of all of that, I'm going to now take my own personal ideals and my viewpoints, and let's see if I can do something on my own. Can you talk a little bit about starting your own shop?
Yeah, I mean, in my career, I worked for a lot of big companies. I did get opportunity when I completed my MBA to work for Deloitte Consulting. Really, that was really an offshoot of my time at Weatherhead and really falling in love with business strategy and then applying strategy with a sustainability and energy lens. Then I went on and worked for Cisco Systems I'd run a good career at Cisco, and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to go off, what do I want to do next? Do I want to go work in another big company? And, the timing was right. My support network was really in place, my wife's career, my family situation. And it really was the opportunity to come out of that corporate world, at least directly, and move back into something that I really loved, which was consulting, without the overhead of Big Five consulting. You can, that's a rough life. And I know some of you have done it, but that, leave Monday, back Thursday or Friday, work all weekend, and then do it all over again. Very, very grinding on family life. The Fortune 500 world, I mean, when I was at Cisco, that's a 24/7 operation. There are no weekends because, by the time your Friday's coming online or coming offline, Dubai is already running, so you really, you can only do so many 3 a.m. conference calls, right? So it was really a lifestyle choice to some extent. And again, I think, you look at all the decisions that I had made prior to that, and I was able to make that choice. I had the right type of resume. I had the right industry connections to go out and provide consulting to a variety of industries where I had interest. I had the right connections to market myself. So that really kind of made the decision, in the end, easier than I thought it was going to be.
Gotcha. And so kind of staying along the vein of your company here, obviously the services, the skills that you have differ pretty greatly from, obviously what any company would be able to produce, having a group of people with several different, core rigidities. So how did you decide what sort of services your consultancy in particular was going to offer? And can you actually talk about what you guys actually do, maybe as an added point there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I focus in, and again, you write a great business plan when you start a business, and then you kind of do about 50% of it if you're lucky. So, when I wrote my business plan, what I believe, I still believe it, although I haven't been able to fully tap into the market that I think is there, is that what you see is that there's a layer of companies who are too small or not correctly structured to actually be able to understand how energy and the sustainability changes that are happening in the world actually impact them. And they can't go out and hire a team of people. They can't go out and have a full-time director of sustainability. But yet the pressures that they're seeing from their either B2B or B2C chain, a value chain, is still there. And some of them, it's very extreme. If you're selling into the automotives, if you're selling to companies like Cisco, if you're selling to Walmart, you're being asked very hard questions about your sustainability efforts, and they're not optional anymore, right? So my original thinking was to help companies, deal with that problem that were maybe what I would call middle market companies, 100 million to a billion. That said, what I ended up actually doing more of is helping larger companies who still had not framed their response to the sustainability question. So most of my customers are either in the, most of my private sector companies are in the large company space, and the services I offer to them are both kind of overall strategy and planning, reporting, which is critical, making sure that they know the key elements on how to talk the sustainability talk with their various stakeholders. And then even in cases where companies may have a team or a part of a team, I'm able to kind of fill in strategic little pieces. And again, that's kind of the, kind of done everything for 20 years. You can kind of, you need a little bit of help with this, you need a little bit of help with that. And that's good because it's a very flexible kind of work in that regard. The one other area that I never expected to get into, though, that's been really enjoyable is working in the public sector. So I've done a number of projects now, and I'm working on some new projects down here in Tennessee, but some work up in Ohio as well around community resiliency and how that's impacted by energy and sustainability decision making. And again, bringing some more technical gravitas to that, because I think we had some community folks on the phone with us as well. And those tend to be political discussions, but at the end of the day, you have to make electrons flow and you have to make money flow for those projects to be successful, even if they're government projects.
Gotcha. And so, I mean, I think you've framed a pretty good problem to have, right? Where you had initial target market and then you wound up actually having customers that are much bigger, with more robust projects, I think.
It's a good problem to have. The other way would have been bad. So this is fun, right?
Yeah, I'm sure many people are a little bit jealous here. So I think the natural question to come from that is, how do you gain access to these higher profile clients? I mean, you're talking 100 million to a billion, or is a little bit smaller than what you're dealing with. How do you gain access to these clients? And when you do that, I'm assuming that procedure of selling yourself to them, convincing them that your service is going to transmit a significant amount of value to them. Can you talk a little bit about that process? How do you meet these people? And when you do, how do you sell yourselves to them as opposed to, another company that you could have potentially worked at trying to take that project away?
Yeah. So, and we do have a question from Maya once we get back to that one. But I think there's a couple of things there. So, I think first and foremost, I'm a firm believer in questions when it comes to selling. I'm an aggressive person, but I'm not an aggressive salesperson, if that makes sense. So what I really like to do is understand, I'll come across a company or individual, we'll meet at a conference, we'll meet at having a mutual connection, right? So a lot of my business is word of mouth reference. Oh, hey, you should meet Ali. He might help you with that problem that you mentioned. And then I ask not a lot of questions, but quite a few questions, to understand what's really going on, but also to help the potential client understand the magnitude, severity, or opportunity of their problem. And what I'm looking for is to create that relationship where I'm a consultant, but I'm not really telling them what to do. I'm facilitating and guiding. I like to be like the sustainability Sherpa, right? They're climbing the mountain, I'm supporter. And so by asking those kind of questions, and then over time you build that relationship, they're going to come back to you with projects. And usually what happens too is I'll do a small project and it will go well. And then, 3 months later, we'll do another project that'd be a little bit bigger. And then 3 months later, we'll do another project. And so you kind of get that regular cycle. My largest client, I'm on my 3rd year of projects with them. And so, we kind of write annual scopes of work. And that's because, again, you understand their business, you understand their politics, you understand their people. and then you're able to kind of see what they need and help them achieve their goals, both the individuals that you're helping as well as the corporation as a whole.
All right, now let's take a look at some of the questions that we've got here.
So I had a question. I didn't write the actual question in there, but so my name's Ayat, and I'm a few years out of undergraduate, and one of the things that really surprised me from so having studied as science, I come to look at the environmental space as like needing innovation and very like technical solutions. And one of the things that surprised me upon graduating was that it seemed like there was more of a need for companies to understand how to actually implement those solutions, and less of a need for actually new innovations, and more just scaling up the innovations that have already been created. And I'm just curious, like in your experience, like how do you see that's true, and how do you like navigate making the argument or like helping like scale the accessibility of these innovations to companies, because that's where the impact comes from, is like being able to scale it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so first of all, I completely agree. I mean, it would be great maybe to have fusion, but other than that, we pretty much have a pretty powerful tool set today to go after the climate problem. And I mean, maybe not everything that we need, but there is a lot of gold on the ground. We don't even have to dig for it. It's just sitting there. And so a lot of what we do in that area is just educate. And you have to educate kind of in two veins. One is that there's still a lot of fear around these various technologies. And people like to do things the way that they've always done things. There's a lot of momentum, personal momentum in this space. And so how do you educate and break down that momentum? And really you have to find those win-wins. So a lot of times it is making someone's job easier. And by the way, you're making it more energy efficient. A lot of times it is, we did this a lot, making a building more inviting and more comfortable. And by the way, more energy efficient. And so when you can kind of get those things, it's easier to change people, right? They come in and they say, wow, the light in this building is phenomenal. It's so much better. I can read my monitors better. The screen's better. You don't need to talk about the fact that it's all LEDs and it's 10% of what the lighting cost was before, right? Now that said, you still have to have the conversation about the money. And Aparna knows this because she was in my Sages class. I saw you pop up and smile. So look, I mean, companies are motivated by money, and that's how they make decisions. And you have to be able to explain how their investments are going to have payback. And really where we've had, I think, the most amount of innovation, and I really hope this current pandemic doesn't stop it, is around financial engineering of these various energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions. So the financing element and being able to take these options to companies and do a no cash down, where you can have either flat or net positive cash flows on these investments in year one, that's a game changer. Right? That's going to get the CFO, I don't care if he believes in climate change or not, he's going to be on board, or she's going to be on board, right? I mean, that's going to happen. But again, being able to frame that conversation in the right way. And again, for my clients, a lot of times too, it's bringing in a consultant to have the gravitas because he's done this before, she's done this before, right? They've taken other clients into these contracts. They've signed these contracts. I did a lot of contracts with Austin Energy. I don't know, she's still on the phone, but they used to be one of my utilities providers when I was at Cisco. So I think those two things, right? I think you're right. The technology is there, getting people comfortable, and then getting that financial engineering done. So science and the MBA, that's my 1-2 punch. And sounds like you're very similar for you.
I'm just curious, as a really quick follow-up. Could you elaborate maybe one example of a really neat financial innovation you've seen?
Oh, I'm working on a project, which of course all these are on hold right now, but we're actually doing lighting retrofits in New York City. This is all union labor, right? We're doing lighting retrofits in New York City, very old lighting. We're doing 5-year lighting as a service. So the company signs a contract with the service provider. The service provider comes in, replaces lighting, changes control systems, modifies the light layout, which is very important in a building. Where the light fixtures are is as important as what type of fixture it is. And they do all of that for an annual service fee, and that annual service fee is lower than the energy savings that are achieved through the project. We're looking at 2 buildings right now for them in New York City. One is an entire New York City block, but we're just doing the basement and the sub-basement. But that's still a lot of lights. And then the other one is an iconic, just an iconic Broadway building. So, these would be huge marquee projects.
Looks like we have another question in the comments from Kareem. What has surprised you the most since making the switch to your own shop? And what has been your biggest challenge?
So the biggest fear that I had I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I think I meet a lot of people who are entrepreneurs and their dad or mom ran a business, or they have an uncle or a cousin, and they kind of grew up around it, right? My parents both worked for huge companies. My wife's parents worked for big companies. We had no entrepreneurs in the family. And so I was just very fearful of all the rules around doing that. So, again, that was an educational hurdle that I had to overcome, right? I had to, understand how to start a business, understand what I needed a lawyer for, what I needed an accountant for, what I was going to do in QuickBooks versus what I wanted to give to somebody else. So that was kind of my biggest fear when I started. And then once I did it, I'm like, oh, this isn't that hard. I just need to read a little bit more and understand and then go do it. And really get that advisor core in, so that I could, if I was confused or I needed something, I could pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, explain this to me, or does this impact me, or should I be doing that? Particularly accounting. I hated accounting. So got my MBA, did not enjoy accounting. Finance, I'm fine with. There's rules in finance that make sense. Accounting to me is arbitrary. So finding a good accountant for me was kind of the key. But I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was. So I had a lot of fear around it. Once I did it, you start to pick it up and you get into a rhythm, and it really makes a lot of sense. And you can kind of use your network and the right people to do the parts of the job that you're not good at, and then focus on what you are good at. So that was a challenge and a surprise rolled into one, Kareem. Sorry.
Sweet. So, Michael, I actually don't know how to respond to the raised hands. Do you want to take care of that really quick? Oh, okay, I can see it.
You can't see. Oh, you can't see. So yeah, I guess Jacob. They pop up in order of raising. So Jacob, why don't you go first?
Okay.
Thank you. So I just had a question for you on talent acquisition and how you select who your employees will be or who you want to work with in the future.
Yeah, so my business plan, and I've stuck to it, is to not have employees. I love the 1099 law. I think it's amazing, the ability to bring on contractors. And so that's what I do. And what I look for is a couple of things. I mean, I'm looking for, kind of going back to our earlier conversation, a combination of, the right type of smarts. And I'm not really concerned about knowledge of the energy industry or any specific technology. That's important, but I can teach that. So really, the solid core data analytics skill set is what I'm looking for. And then the other side is the ability to write, and the ability in particular to write presentations, so to be concise. And those two things to me are the most critical. My projects are varied. So, I'm not looking to have full-time employees. I'll bring somebody on for a contract for 3 months to do a specific scope of work. It's all remote, right? So works great for where we're in today. Everything's remote already for me. But from a mission standpoint, what I do try to do is bring in students, right? So all of my 1099s so far have been undergrad or grad students. And that's, again, I think that gives people visibility into the sustainability and energy space when they're kind of making career decisions. And then I can go encourage them to be a CFO or a president of a company and then think sustainably, because they'll probably do more good that way than just being a sustainability person like me. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, looks like we have another raised hand, Aparna. Step up to the plate.
All right. Hi, Ollie. It's good to hear from you again.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question about what are some examples of the community resilience projects that you mentioned earlier? And can you speak to how you leverage your industry experiences and networks to drive that progress?
Yeah, so we've been working on a number of different projects. The biggest one has been the establishment of a microgrid in downtown Cleveland. And that project's still going. I was working on that 2 years ago. It's, you have to think in long terms when you're doing public works projects. But, what we're really talking about there is creating a very high uptime electric service within the downtown area of Cleveland. And the idea being that there's kind of two interesting parts of that. One is that the high reliability electrons can be sold for more money than a lower reliability electron. And by the way, we're talking in the fourth and fifth decimal place of reliability. So we're talking about going from 99.99 to 99.999. Which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but that's hours a year versus minutes a year of downtime. So, so that's been one that we've been working on for a long time. Again, there's a technical, there's a economic feasibility component of that. So there's all the mathematics and analysis around that. And then I partnered up with some folks from Cleveland State University on that project as well. They were prime, and they were looking at the economic development impact. Right. So we think about, let's say, I know that it's been in at least 2 city county economic development packets, the microgrid. One was unsuccessful and one was successful in terms of attraction and retention of companies to downtown Cleveland. So that was one. What was the second half of your question? Sorry, I went too long on the first half.
It's all good. The second half was, how do you leverage your industry experiences / networks to drive that progress?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of what I've done too, particularly since moving down to Tennessee, has been actually looking to partner with various other consultants. It's amazing how many other small consultancies are out there. And there's consortias of us that have similar interests and similar backgrounds. I joined one about maybe 8 or 9 months ago that's all ex-Big 5 consultants. And so we actually have a job board, and people will say, hey, I'm doing a merger and acquisition project in Texas. Anybody want to join us for 4 weeks? Or, so there's a lot of kind of, when you have certain experiences, so in that case, that's Big 5. A lot of my other stuff is around sustainability or energy, that you're able to kind of reach out and ask questions or ask for help and then kind of build relationships. So there's a small consultancy up in Minnesota that I've been working with. There's another one, a guy that actually he reached out to me. He just started his business up in Vermont. So we've been kind of bidding projects together and looking for work together. Not yet successful, but we'll get there. And we have, again, overlapping skill sets. So some stuff, overlaps, other stuff is different. He's got a lot of experience. This guy in Vermont has a lot of experience in solar policy, which we bid a very interesting project in DC. We came in second, which means we got nothing, but pride, I guess. We get pride for coming in second.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, sweet. So it doesn't look like we have, actually, I do have one question that was submitted to me privately. This is from Mark, the director of the Think Energy Fellowship Program, actually.
So not private anymore, okay.
Yeah, and he had a question actually to see if you could speak on the impact of COVID-19 on the renewable energy industry in the United States, if any. And the second part to that question, do you deal with any consulting, or rather, do you do all of your consulting or most of it in US-based companies? And how does that affect it?
Second question first. I do some global companies, but everything I'm doing is mostly US centric. So I'm working with their US divisions. I did a project a year and a half ago where I actually analyzed on-site solar agreements in about 6 different countries, where this company had the various plants had actually gone out and signed agreements to put solar on the roofs. They were all different. Procurement wasn't involved. They were all non-standard. And the sustainability director came to me and said, can we actually claim these as carbon reducing projects? Because not all contracts in that space are created equal. So I, reviewed the contracts, or in the case of the Chinese ones, reviewed the translations of the contracts and then provided some consulting. But most of my work is US centric. It's funny because didn't I say to you, I'm so over COVID. It's like all I read about. So a couple of interesting things, right? So it's having some negative impacts in terms of renewable energy deployment. I'm sickened by what the EPA just did in opening up restrictions. Basically, it's free to pollute right now, which is stupid. But I'm also looking at a lot of the potential outcomes of stimulus packages. So a lot of the investment in particularly renewable energy happened at the last stimulus, right? A lot of that low-cost money got funneled into renewable energy projects. Low-cost money in renewables makes them, they're already cheaper than non-renewable energy sources, but when you give them low-cost money, they become no-brainers. So I was on a call with some folks, and we were talking from DC. There's a big movement around what's called green banking. And it is basically, it's not a bank, but it's more of like an investment mechanism for leveraging money to go into energy efficiency, renewable energy, and resiliency projects. And so, I know that we're looking at one in Ohio, we're looking at one here in Tennessee, and there's going to be a lot of national push to take a sliver of any recovery money that comes out of this COVID pandemic recovery fund and target it for that kind of avenue and that kind of green banking mechanism for delivery. So I don't want to think about like right now. In terms of longer term, I think there's probably more opportunity in the energy and infrastructure space. I think the silver lining, and you guys can Google this, look at LA skyline today. Look at San Francisco skyline. When people stop driving their cars, the sky goes blue. There's your proof right there. If you don't believe in man-made climate change, there's some little proof points for you. So hopefully we can take all this stuff and turn it to advantage. There's obviously a lot of impact on human life, on life as we know it. There's a lot of things that are going to change, but entrepreneurship is about problem solving and opportunity finding. And so I think that's what we have to do here, in particular in this one.
I promise no more COVID-19 related questions from me. Looks like we do have another hand raised from Jacob.
Thank you. So I had a question for you, I guess probably more of a consulting based question, but I'm really curious to see how you set your prices for the different projects that you go into. I know just like on this call, you've mentioned multiple different types of things that you've done to help different size corporations. So I was curious as to how you gauge the value of your work and how much you should be paid for it.
That is perhaps the hardest consulting question ever, right? Because basically you're valuing your time and your expertise. So I think that the one philosophical approach that I took at the beginning, and this was again probably from having PTSD from being in a big 5 consulting company, is I did not want to do hourly based work. So I do not do, like many consultants do, I do not do price per hour consulting. I do only fixed price consulting. And so, now behind the scenes, of course, everything is hourly based, right? So, what I tend to do, particularly with a newer client, is I look to answer 2 questions. One, how much effort is this going to take? And I look at that both from a physical time, how much time is it going to take to do the work that I'm proposing in that scope of work, but also opportunity cost, right? Because I want to try to absorb, if I'm doing this work, I'm not doing this work, right? So that's kind of one avenue of it. And then, the other avenue is, what can the client afford? And you have to be realistic about that. And I tend to look at it about in more of terms of what type of value am I driving, right? So if I'm helping a client save $10 million a year, I am not going to be charging him rock bottom rate, right? But the flip side of that is that, for a lot of my public sector clients, I do charge rock bottom rate, right? Because I think there's a societal good that's coming from that. And as long as I am at my full utilization level and that client is not consuming 100% of my time, then I'm able to kind of play with my rates. And I joke with my private sector clients. I say, hey, the money that you're paying me is helping fund work getting done in cities. Right? So, and they understand that, right? Because again, what I do is inherently, mission-based consultancy. I mean, I'm in like a shared office space when I have an office here in Chattanooga, and somebody, the office manager, put out on Slack, hey, what's everybody up to? We can't come into the office, what are we up to? And I texted back, I'm just saving the plant like I do every day, right? So, if you have that mission around, you're able to be very flexible in pricing. I believe that people only value what they pay for. So you have to be a little careful about that. If you undervalue it, then they actually don't value your advice. So that's another kind of balancing act that you have to take.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and ask another question here. This is most likely going to take us up until the end. So if anybody else has any last questions, throw up a hand and hopefully we'll try and address it by the end here. So Ali, I just wanted to circle back to something you talked about earlier, which is the sort of intensity around what climate change really means to people, right? Back when you first started right out of college, climate change and energy related projects within companies and businesses are very different from what they are now, right? Yeah. Because we acknowledge this is a much greater issue. So when you go about taking projects, how do you see your responsibility as an entrepreneur within that fit? I mean, do you try and take the smaller projects where you're kind of just chipping away at smaller things? Or are you on the other end where you're super radical, like let's completely rebuild the whole joint, says, we need to go completely gung-ho with the energy efficiency thing that save the planet? Where do you fall on that spectrum, and how do you really view your responsibility as, an entrepreneur in that space?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am not an eco warrior to begin with. I'm a practical environmentalist is how I like to describe myself. I have an electric vehicle on order. It hasn't arrived yet, but I don't own it yet. So, but look, I think I'll take the classic consulting response, which is it depends. And look, there are clients that are looking for radical change. And those are a lot of fun. Those clients are a lot of fun, right? I was on a call with a potential client, Bay Area, highly innovative company. And we were spitballing ideas that were just like groundbreaking, right? And it's fun. Other clients are going to move at their pace, and it's going to be a lot slower. So I think when you're a consultant, you have to kind of subvert your own ideals, and you have to kind of see where the client wants to go, and you have to be willing to move maybe a little bit faster than where they're comfortable, but not so fast that they are uncomfortable, right? And I'll give you an example though. So we started with a client, my largest client a few years ago. They're in the media industry, and we created a executive council to kind of look at sustainability and environmental sustainability within their company. And they'd never done it before. And they were responding to a shareholder resolution, which was requiring them to report on carbon and set goals and all this stuff. And they successfully fended off this shareholder resolution. And then they realized it would have been cheaper just to do it than actually fight the shareholder. But we're sitting in this council meeting 3 years ago. And I mean, he's really the COO of the company, and he's almost Khrushchev-like banging his shoe on the table saying, we will never have a carbon reduction goal as a company. Never. We're never going to do it. And about 6 months ago, we were in a meeting, and he goes, why don't we have a carbon goal? I mean, it took 3 years. It took 3 years. But that's success, and it's education, demonstrating value, showing all of these other things that can happen to help employees, to help other stakeholders, to help the investor community. And so when you kind of keep explaining and you keep showing, that's how people move along this continuum, and they realize that this stuff is very important. So to me, that's kind of a story that maybe can bookend that kind of conversation, but just have to move at their pace and understand what that is, and just keep prodding, right?
Yeah.
Great. Well, that went fast. Ali, we look forward to welcoming back to Case and to Cleveland when we get through this challenging time, but sort of using technology. I know many of us feel like we're a prisoner to WebEx or Zoom or these things. But I think, providing a forum to have an important conversation about climate and energy and entrepreneurship, it was great. I was really pleased. We've done a lot of sort of tech heavy stuff as part of this series. So it was really nice to branch out to the energy sector. And so, Rohan, thank you. And all the Think Energy fellows for joining the call, and Ali, thank you for your time. This was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me, and look forward to seeing all you guys soon. And everybody's already hitting me on LinkedIn, so I'll respond on my LinkedIn requests.